Hey everybody. Today's video is going to be over a concept that we've already covered before, but we're going to take it one step further today. So this is going to be building on that intro to length of stay restriction video that was posted sometime last year. That was a beginner video. So if you haven't seen that one, go back and watch it. Otherwise, this is going to be taking it just another step further and adding a new level of kind of nuance to the different types of restrictions that are out there. So I'm just going to jump right into it. And before we get started on minimum lengths of stay, I'm going to introduce a new concept. So for all of these different length of stay restrictions and house policies, start thinking of them in two different ways. So there's two different types. There's a traditional length of stay restriction, or a traditional restriction, and then there's the through. So you'll see here there's a traditional min length of stay and a min length of stay through. So the difference between those two is a traditional length of stay restriction is only going to affect the night in question for arrivals, and then the min stay through takes whatever rule that you add and applies it to all reservations that are quote unquote staying through that particular date. So that's why that extra word is added on there. So the min length of stay through. So let's start with the minimum length of stay and hopefully add some clarity to that distinction. So let's start with this business on the books report here. So you can see that this property's made a couple different changes. They've added a min stay 3 to this Monday, a min stay 2 to the Tuesday night, and a min stay 2 to the Saturday, February 3rd. So let's take a look at what that means to have these length of stay restrictions in a traditional format. So the length of stay restrictions are only going to affect that night of arrival. So for example, you have this min stay 3 here on this really strong Monday. That looks like that's going to be, a no-brainer sellout. So notice that this reservation here, the reservations that are in blue, those are okay to book. And the ones that are in red crossed out, those are reservations that would not be accepted with this kind of restriction. So you may be asking yourself, why is there a min stay 3 on Monday and a 2-night stay is able to book? Well, the reason why is because the min stay 3 only affects arrivals. So that's a traditional min length of stay. So a guest can quote unquote cheat, and they can sneak in, they can arrive on the Sunday and stay Monday night, and they're only staying 2 nights. It's only a 2-night reservation. So just keep that in mind. If your system uses that old kind of traditional minimum length of stay, for example, Marriott properties in Marcia, you have to always think in these kind of terms, the traditional min length of stay. So check out this reservation here. So Res 2, they're staying for 3 nights and they're arriving on that Monday. So they follow all the rules that we could, want them to follow. So they're fine. And then this Saturday here on the 3rd, we have, a transient guest here. Let's pretend they're a leisure guest checking in for a concert. They're staying for 2 nights on that min stay 2. They're arriving on Saturday. That's great. That's fine. So what is not allowed with the traditional min length of stay? So you can see that there's a guest here that's trying to arrive on Monday the 29th, and they're not able to because the minimum length of stay 3-night, the 3-night min stay, is barring them from staying. They can't stay, they can't arrive there. So this reservation is rejected, or you wouldn't show availability for a guest who's searching those criteria. And then really straightforward, same thing here on Saturday, there's a min stay 2. This guest wants to show up for 1 night. They're not going to be able to book us. So what does a min stay through do? So min stay through is going to be a little bit more restrictive. So I want you to immediately take a look at this Res 4. So this reservation 4 here, remember this is a guest who was able to sneak in over here on the traditional length of stay. They were able to sneak in and book that Sunday and Monday because the arrival date of Sunday doesn't have a restriction. But because the min stay through forces anybody who stays touching this Monday or over this Monday, they have to stay 3. So this 2-night stay arriving on Sunday is not able to book. They would have to give us the Saturday night, that prior Saturday as well. So this Saturday, this reservation 3, this Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night reservation, they can book because they are a 3-night stay. This 2-night stay arriving on the Monday where the min stay 3 is, obviously that one doesn't work either. So that's just a little added nuance that min stay through forces the guest to at least stay 3 nights, you know, if they're touching that Monday at all. So another interesting subtlety about the min stay 2 that I will add is that a min stay 2, it achieves the same thing. If it's traditional or it's a min stay 2 through, it doesn't matter, because let's pretend that the min stay 2 here was on this Monday. Then, you know, even if the guest quote unquote sneaks in like reservation 1 did, they still have to book 2 nights. So a min stay 2, regardless of whether or not it's a traditional affecting only the arrival or a min stay 2 through, it does the same thing. It doesn't really start to change until you start to get into the min stay 3s, 4s, 5s, and so on. So the next restriction is going to be, let's take a look here. The next restriction is going to be the maximum length of stay. So again, there are the 2 different types of maximum length of stay. There is the traditional, and then there's also the max stay through. Sorry, I lost my video there for a second. So let's start with the traditional maximum length of stay. So this one is only going to affect Wednesday night and arrival for Wednesday night. So notice that there's a lot of different reservations here that are booking and they're able to book. So the first is somebody who's following the rules entirely. It's a 3-night stay, arrival on this Wednesday, the 31st. They're a 3-nighter, boom, they're good. Tuesday, notice again how this is a 2-night reservation. They're not arriving on Wednesday, so the maximum doesn't really affect them in the first place. So they're fine to book also. Okay, and then reservation 3, you're probably thinking, yeah, this is a no-brainer. That's a 5-night stay. Reservation 3, you know, that's fine because it's not arriving on the Wednesday and it's a longer length of stay, so we'd want it, right? The answer is yeah. We do want this reservation. It can book perfectly fine. That's great. I included it because you'll notice over here that the max length of stay through starts to do some pretty dangerous stuff. So let's take a look here at 2 examples on the traditional maximum length of stay that are not allowed. And these are straightforward. These are no-brainers. So there's a 4-nighter arriving on Wednesday. They can't stay. There's a 5-nighter arriving on Wednesday. Again, too long of a length of stay, can't stay. The maximum length of stay through forces any reservation that stays on Wednesday night has to be a 3+ stay. So why is this so dangerous? Well, look at reservation 4 here. That is a 5-night stay. And you got to ask yourself, how many times do I want to turn down a 5-night stay? Probably not very often. So, you know, worst case scenario, think of this as, what if this is a 30-night stay and you have this maximum length of stay through restriction here? You could have people shopping for 30, 60, 90-day reservations and they're never able to book because you have this really, really dangerous, restrictive house policy here. So the the max stay through does the same thing also. If your arrival on that date, you can't stay more than 3, but it's dangerous for the fact that it locks out a lot of these longer length of stay reservations. And typically I've used maximum lengths of stay a couple times, but usually it's only leading up to something that's really, really massive citywide event. And in that case, I'm only messing around with the traditional maximum length of stay. I don't like the maximum length of stay through. I don't think I've ever even used one. So I would say 90 to 95% of the time, the minimum lengths of stay are good enough. And then every once in a while for a really exceptionally big event, like I think last year, we had the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia. I think I used a maximum length of stay for a property leading up to that, but it was a traditional maximum length of stay. It wasn't anything fancy. Okay, so the third is the closure. And again, it's a closure. It's closing the property, but the same 2 nuances and the same 2 philosophies apply. So the close to arrival It only affects arrival dates. So if you have an owner or a GM that's really trigger happy and likes to use the close to arrival, show them this video. It'll explain why they shouldn't use them as often as they think they should. I put out a blog post, which I'll throw the link up here probably now, so you can click on it. And it explains in more detail why you shouldn't really ever rely on these. These should be placeholders until you're able to get a more permanent strategy in place. So the close to arrival, let's start with that one. It looks like this Wednesday, the 31st coming up. This night it's really close to a sellout. So let's say for some reason, maybe some rooms went out of service, or, we noticed something that we didn't like. So just to be safe, we added a close to arrival. Keep in mind, just like the name suggests, it only closes reservations to arrival on that day. So what a lot of times GMs and owners think that it's doing, it's not doing at all. So all it's doing is blocking out this reservation 4 and reservation 5 because they arrive on the 31st. So if you panic and put a CTA, you can still have these reservations staying through, right? So reservation 1, they're arriving back here on Saturday and they're staying through the Wednesday. So it's still definitely possible to pick up business even with the CTA on. If you really want to close out your property, you would have to use a full closure, which you could almost consider just like the last 2 reservations we talked about. It's like a close through, right? So it closes out inventory even to reservations that are staying through. And so this is even more dangerous than the maximum length of stay, because you're turning down these super long length of stay reservations, and nobody can even touch this Wednesday the 31st, which is really, really something you want to avoid. Notice that these reservations can book if they're not touching the Wednesday, but then you start getting into these really nice, what is that? That's a 5, 6, 7, 8 night reservation. You don't want to turn down an 8 night reservation. So that's why I wouldn't use them. Again, they're just placeholders. Use them if you need, like 24 hours to catch your breath and get a better restriction in place or a better strategy, better rate strategy in place. So let's take a look at this is a real business on the books that I pulled for one of my properties. I'm not going to tell you which one, but I pulled this straight from the portal. So this is the real deal. And I already have some restrictions in place, but I just want to walk through, which restrictions you could potentially use here. And really, like I said, about 95% of the time, the minimum lengths of stay are going to cover it. So just a quick rundown. You can see this upcoming weekend is already really strong. We're already very close to the sellout. We're forecast above supply. This is a 93-room hotel. So, just kind of sandboxing over here on the right to throw in some strategies that we could do. This weekend, that's still 3 or 4 days out from arrival. I think we could probably put 2 min stay 2s there. And then what I would do is probably day of, if we still have 2 or 3 rooms, I would lift them. Or for example, if tomorrow I check the morning snapshot and we've lost a group, we've lost 12 rooms, then I would lift, maybe lift one of the min stay 2s. But for now, I think with only 6 rooms left to sell, there's only 6 rooms. We're forecasting above supply. So I bet out there are at least 6 people who are willing to stay for both Friday and Saturday. So, and possibly even the Thursday, Friday. So I would want, I think probably the traditional min stay 2 would do it. I don't think it's a min stay 2. So like I mentioned earlier, it gets the job done. So we don't have to worry about the min stay 2 through or anything like that. Weekdays are pretty soft. I don't see any reason to restrict the house. Then we get to this weekend here, the February of February 10th and the 11th. That's another weekend, Friday, Saturday. As you can see, this hotel's pretty busy on the weekend. For this one, I think the Saturday, February 11th, still needs a little bit of help on the one night side of things. I would just put a min stay 2 there. Just a traditional, normal min stay 2 for arrival. I think that's fine. Now we can get a little bit more creative here. So this weekend, and I'm throwing in the Thursday here, so the 16th, 17th, and 18th of February. That's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And we're forecasting above supply for the Thursday and the Friday. So for that one, I think for sure the Thursday, Friday needs something. I would actually leave the Saturday alone because I'd like to pick up some one-nighters there to balance out that inventory. But we could get pretty creative here. I think at the bare minimum, you would want a min-stay 2. But this far out, if we're already, this is 2 weeks out, for 2.5 weeks out, if we're already forecasting this strong and above supply, I think we would want to do a min-stay 3 for Thursday. And this is just for fun. I probably have something different in reality going on here, but we could do a min-stay 3, and I would do, just a traditional min-stay 3. So if somebody's arriving here on the 16th, they've got to give me Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And the reason why I put a traditional is because I don't want to block out any 2-nighters. If there are any Wednesday, Thursday stays, I want them to stay with me. So if I put that min-stay 3 through, that's gonna block out any Wednesday, Thursday stays, which the Wednesday is only at 22%, and it's forecasting 58 out of 93 rooms sold. I don't want to mess with that. I want as many rooms there as I can get. And then from there, this weekend, you can see that forecast. Sorry, I should have this up top here for you. So this forecast column, we're forecasting 88 rooms. So that's not even a sellout for the 23rd. If you're not forecasting above supply, I probably wouldn't add anything there, to be honest with you. The 24th, I would put a min-stay 2 here. I think I do have a min-stay 2 there for that weekend. And then the 25th. So notice that the inventory is a little bit out of balance. I still want to sell some 2-nighters there, but the forecast is so strong at 119 that I think we can go ahead and guard it. I think we can put a min-stay 2 in the Hail Mary chance that we get some Saturday, Sunday business. And then as we get closer, what I would do is probably lift it. I'd probably open the house up, and I would take some 1-nighters just to make sure we get the perfect sellout. So that is a brief rundown of the more advanced side, and you can get even more advanced with this. I know in the yielding video, we're not only putting restrictions on the house, but we're also putting restrictions on the different tier levels. So this is just another video about house policies. I may try to make an advanced video. I don't really know how much more advanced you can get with it, but probably tie in some yielding with it as well. So if you enjoyed this video, there's more stuff you can check out. I have a blog post about this on my website. And then as always, I'll include the company website if you guys want to check that out in more detail. So thank you. I appreciate it and look forward to the next video. Feel free to ask questions, subscribe, and all that good stuff. All right. Thanks.